Ayo, Zempak here. Another day not working for the man. Today's episode on the Fireside Chat is all about why savings rate is the paramount item on your list if you ever want to achieve financial independence of any form. Right? I'm not talking about it could be early, it could be late, or regular, but if you want to retire, you want to have a good time later on in life, you need to be able to save a reasonable rate of your income. I've seen a lot of financial advice on the internet, on traditional media that talks about the details of how to invest. I mean, that's important, right? I'm not saying that's not important. But what I'm trying to say is that at a basic level, Americans are poorly coordinated to take advantage of any investment advice until you actually have some money to invest. Okay, the average savings rate in the U.S. is like 7%, and that's considered on a good year. That is so ridiculously low. Okay, I think I talked about already what I think the optimal savings rate is, which is at least 50%. Okay, at least half of your income. Okay. Now, I want to mention the reason why I think the savings rate is so important is also because it stands for your attitude towards money, right? Like your ability to separate your short-term needs from your long-term goals. You know, I read about like how people, Americans actually go into debt for holiday spending, right? Whereas holidays are coming up, Christmas presents, all that. That's all great and good. We love presents. Who doesn't love presents, right? And we all love good presents, right? But good presents doesn't have to mean expensive presents, right? Think about when you were a kid. What did you give your friends or your family when you didn't have that much money? You had to think about what they want. Maybe you made something like arts and crafts or whatever, right? Because that is what really matters, the thought you put behind a gift, right? Not the dollar amounts, okay? If you're trying to impress people with the dollar amount of your gifts during holiday season, I joke, that's what Kobe used to do every time he cheated on his wife, okay? Diamond rings start coming out. I mean, that's not just Kobe. I'm just talking about that's the celebrity solution, right? Towards infidelity. More presents, expensive presents to wash away the guilt. That is absolutely ridiculous, right? Don't be like those idiots, right? If you can't afford, like, if you need to go into debt to afford presents, you can't afford those presents, okay? It's okay. You could just spend less on presents because there's every type of spending can be justified in the United States, right? Like, you don't have to spend thousands of dollars just in Q4 like advertisers want you to, okay? Advertisers are good to themselves, like Amazon, Prime Day, Black Friday, all these shops. They're not looking out for you. They're looking out for themselves, which is totally fine. I love capitalism. Let them look out for themselves, but they're not looking out for you. Just remember that, okay? So if you can get away from that consumerist trap, that's all it is. You want to be able to aim for that optimal savings rate that I talked about on a previous video, 50%. Okay, because think about that. The 50% savings rate is really what you're devoting towards your long-term goals. Surely you have some long-term goals, right? Your goals are not just like, oh, what am I going to do next month or in 2 months? But what do you want to do in 5 to 10 years, right? Governments have plans 5 to 10 years out. So should you, right? Think about what you want your life to look like in the intermediate to longer term, because that's what savings is really for, right? And I don't want to, again, this video is about savings rate, not about how to invest it, but first you need to have that money on hand to invest, right? Like maybe even honestly, when I first saved up some money, I just like to have it sitting in my savings account, checking account, not for long, but like for like a month or two, just look at it. Made me feel good, okay? It really did. Like I would joke every year after I'd get a bonus, right? it was nice to look at my checking account and see like 5 figures, maybe sometimes even 6 figures, just sitting in my checking account, sitting in my savings account. I mean, that's not efficient at all. I'm not saying that that's where you should keep your money. There's many, many other ways that I will talk about later on to actually invest your money. But just for a week or two, looking at that money, not doing much, being slowly chipped away by inflation, it still feels good, right? It feels like, hey, I did succeed at accumulation, right? That's really what making money and saving it means, that you're accumulating it, right? You're gathering those little soldiers to go to work for you later on. But it's okay to take a moment and recognize that it's good to simply have saved, right? Now, a lot of you are probably going to be like, it's hard for me to save 5 figures, maybe 4 figures, 5 figures, much less 6 figures in my savings account. Look, everybody's got to start somewhere, okay? Don't worry what I'm telling you because I'm in my own headspace, right? Like, think about like, Kevin Hart's comedy. He's like talking about rich people problems. I'm talking about like just barely rich enough people problems. And if you're not rich yet, that's okay, right? Don't worry what other people are talking about. Just worry about like, do I have more savings this month than last month compared to how you are doing, right? To a time period that's previous to now. That's all you can do, okay? Life is not a competition between you and your neighbors. It's a competition between you and your former self, right? As long as you're making improvements, slowly chipping away at bad habits and developing good habits, that's all that really matters, okay? Like if you had debt, try to knock that down, because until you knock out your debt, you don't have any savings, right? Yeah. I mean, I like listening to Dave Ramsey sometimes, and I agree with him philosophically for people who are in terrible, terrible, dire financial straits, right? If you're in debt, look, don't worry about anything else. Get rid of that first, right? And then worry about like how you want to build a buffer in your life. And that's really all savings ever is, right? It's a buffer towards the unfairness and the disastrous possibilities of life, right? And once your buffer is big enough, then you can talk about, oh, what do I want like this buffer to do, to work for me, right? Like that's what capitalism is all about, right? You have enough of a buffer of capital, then the capital can work for you and, become like essentially like an AI that works to your advantage. In the sci-fi movies, the AI always goes crazy and like destroys the world. But in reality, if you have enough capital, eventually that capital is going to work for you so much that, it's on autopilot and you don't have to do anything anymore. That's where I'm at, okay? That's where I want you to be at too, because we all like options, right? Like, if you love your job, you can still continue to do that. No one's going to force you to stop working or whatever, okay? To me, when I talk about FIRE, I really just care about the financial independence part, right? The retire early. Look, I'm doing something, right? So is this retirement, right? Who cares? Definition is just semantics, right? But the financial independence part is so important because it gives you unlimited flexibility as to how you want to spend your time, right? So if you want to work, go do that. If you don't, right? If you want to go ride dirt bikes in the mountains, you can. Flexibility is all we're ever asking for. Hope you understand what I'm trying to say, and I hope you understand better why savings rate is absolutely the most important, the paramount step, but the first. It's paramount, but it's also just the first step towards getting to complete freedom that financial independence represents. Good day.